Okay, good. Let's get this all rolling. Here we go. All right, so what do you need to know? There is a giant war right now going on relating to artificial intelligence being used by the federal government. As you know or may not know, Claude was an artificial intelligence program used by Anthropic to supply the United States government with artificial intelligence as a mainstay for their programs and policies that they wanted to use with, studying people, snooping on them, etc., or potentially using it for war-related activities. Now, what a lot of you don't realize is that artificial intelligence, when it comes to the government using it, is not a wholly owned government entity. What do I mean by that? So the government will build programs of what they want the artificial intelligence system to do, but the artificial intelligence program that there's zillions of people working on, billions and trillions of dollars going towards, those actual artificial intelligence systems are usually owned by a separate company, in this case, Anthropic. So a lot of you are used to OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, or maybe Grok, Super Grok, which is owned by Elon. A lot of you are used to those. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is something happened where the federal government very quickly and aggressively said, hey, we don't want to use Claude anymore. And it's because Claude, by and through Anthropic, said that they were going to restrict the government's ability to use their artificial intelligence system. Now, as a result of that, all of the Democrat-oriented people are now moving to go use Claude, whereas all the Republican people are still kind of, figuring out between, OpenAI and Grok, which one they want to end up on. And this is interesting because, Anthropic just had literally hours ago an outage because there was so much request for their artificial intelligence, which is good for Anthropic because they just lost billions and potentially trillions of dollars from the United States government using their artificial intelligence system. So just to kind of, again, make things simpler or whatever, the bottom line is this. There are artificial intelligence companies that deliver a system that the government can use. And the government likes it uninhibited, not restricted in any way, because the government wants to build programs onto what those artificial intelligence companies deliver to them. Let me read to you an article specifically from Axios so you understand exactly what's going on. Okay, so Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth basically had lots of words to say, but let's go right to President Trump first. President Trump said Friday the U.S. government would blacklist Anthropic, and the Pentagon declared the company a supply chain risk in the most consequential and controversial policy decision to date at the intersection of artificial intelligence and national security. The big picture notation is that Anthropic rebuffed the Pentagon's demand to lift all safeguards on the military's use of its model Claude due to its concerns about the use of AI for mass domestic surveillance and the development of weapons that fire without human involvement. So just to break it down, just so that you're fully aware of it, okay? Number one, it's about allowing artificial intelligence to mass surveil Americans, which obviously affects you guys with CDI units, with ROIs being created, etc. And then also allowing artificial intelligence to have full autonomous, non-human involvement decisions with weaponry. And the US government is saying they want to be able to mass surveil without limitations. They want to be able to go ahead and have, weapons that do not require human involvement. Okay. And Claude, through Anthropic, said, we will not allow that. All right. So the bottom line is this, just to be clear, Defense Undersecretary Emil Michael was on the phone offering Anthropic a deal just as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, so higher person, tweeted the company would be designated a supply chain risk, a source familiar to Axios was told. The deal would have required allowing the collection or analysis of data on Americans, from geolocation to web browsing data to personal financial information purchased from data brokers, the source added. So essentially, the federal government through the Pentagon was saying, we want your artificial intelligence system to be completely unrestricted, and we want to be able to search anything and everything that we want about Americans, human beings, and we as the Pentagon would like to have access to all of it. Now, obviously, for those of you on disability benefits, this would be a problem for you because, to be very clear, if they can search anything and do anything that they want, they can pretty much learn exactly what they need to kick you off of benefits. Why? Because any disabled person, if you basically film them enough and collect enough information on them, you can find that they're not disabled so long as they're not in that, like, housebound, bedbound, terminal situation. So as a result of that, this was kind of a win for the disabled and also the retired, because a lot of people are doing under the table jobs. And as a result of that, it's a situation where they just kind of, to be fair, would not do so well, right? Those receiving benefits, they'd have a benefit reduction or benefit cutoff if the government had full access to all this information. And then you also have other issues too, like attorney-client privilege. You wouldn't be able to search attorneys and stuff like that. Now, let's go through some of this basic stuff. Okay, there will be a 6-month wind down period to allow the Pentagon, its customers, and other government agencies to onboard alternatives to Claude, which right now are OpenAI and Grok. Quote, I'm directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology, Trump wrote on Truth Social, which is going to be rocky because there's a lot of groups that use, that Claude model. Trump's announcement is particularly extraordinary because Claude is the only AI model currently used in the military's classified systems. So in other words, their ability to search and find out who you are, what you're doing, who you're working for, any payments you have, any cash that changed hands, all that stuff, being able to use any imaging they can take from satellites, etc., and then have that artificial intelligence mass search through it. Those types of things. Basically, they're going to be switching over to a different AI model going forward. So just to clear up, it was used in the operation to capture Nicolas Maduro and could conceivably be used in a potential military operation in Iran. Defense officials praised Claude's capabilities in conversations with Axios, with one admitting it would be a huge pain in the ass to disentangle. The decision is also complicated for AI software firm Palantir, which uses Claude to power its most sensitive work with the military and will likely now need to strike a deal with one of Anthropic's competitors. So bottom line is this, and so here's one of the quotes that came from it. Quote, the left-wing nut jobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong-arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution, Trump wrote. Trump's declaration came one day after Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei rejected what the Pentagon had called its best and final offer, stating we cannot in good conscience accede to their request, which is basically to allow them to use Claude to create uninhibited artificial intelligence that could control tools of war or mass search through and basically snoop on American citizens. Okay, Emil Michael, the senior Pentagon official who had been steering the negotiations with Anthropic and other AI firms, responded by calling Amodei a liar with a God complex who is okay putting our nation's safety at risk. Because you remember, at the end of the day, the Pentagon is going to say, hey, we need all available tools to do whatever we want as the U.S. federal government. And then, of course, Anthropic is saying, no, you don't. You can do all these other things, but we don't want you doing these things. The Pentagon argues that there are many gray areas around what constitutes mass surveillance or autonomous weaponry, and that it's unworkable to have to litigate individual cases with a private company. Their position is that once the military buys a tool, it has its own standards and procedures to determine whether and how to use it. They therefore demanded all AI firms make their models available for all lawful purposes. Although the kicker is, as you know, the government has a bunch of backdoor rules that they can use to go ahead and basically, find you using anything they want. So, a lot of you don't realize, but after 9/11, they put in a lot of rules and regulations that kind of go against the Constitution to be able to, search, find in any way possible using techniques that are clearly a violation of your, basic constitutional rights to privacy. But at the same time, they put them through as a result of 9/11. Anthropic has not yet said whether it will attempt to fight the designation in court. The company has been growing at a staggering rate and establishing dominance in some key enterprise use cases for AI. Amodei and colleagues have garnered widespread praise in the past 24 hours for their principled stand. It's not yet clear how expensive that stand will be, meaning how much money they will lose as a result of not supporting the U.S. government with what it wants to do. Elon Musk's XAI recently signed an agreement to let the military use its model, Grok, in classified systems. Sources say it's unlikely to be a like-for-like replacement for Claude. Google's Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT are both available in unclassified systems, and the Pentagon is accelerating conversations about bringing them into the classified space. Hundreds of employees from Google and OpenAI have signed a petition in the past 24 hours calling on their companies to mirror Anthropic's position. Now, I want to go through some of the quotes so that you understand how big of a kerfuffle this whole thing actually is. And again, my apologies if my voice sounds a little problematic. I'm just getting through that cold. So that's what's going on. Also, real quick, to answer Diana's thank you for the $2 donation. Big heart there. How are you feeling? I'm doing okay. A little bit overloaded because it is Monday and there's a zillion calls, but I wanted to do this quick video because I'm feeling okay right now. I don't know how I'm going to feel later in the day, but I wanted to go through and just kind of deliver this information so you understand. Right now, they are fighting over how much technology they're going to have to access when reviewing whether or not they should be able to mass surveil United States citizens in an uninhibited way, which is a problem for people on disability benefits because, as you can imagine, if you film anybody for a long enough period, you're going to be able to show with little bits of footage that they are not in fact disabled. So, heads up on that. Quote, I'm directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease all use of Anthropic's technology. We don't need it, we don't want it, and will not do business with them again. President Donald Trump. Quote, tonight we reached an agreement with the Department of War to deploy our models in their classified network. That was OpenAI CEO Sam Altman announcing the deal on X shortly after Anthropic's ouster. Now, what's funny about that is that Sam Altman basically said, hey, I think Anthropic is doing the right thing. And then in an et tu brute situation where he kind of turned around and stabbed them in the back because they are main competitors, basically he went and signed up with the government to do exactly what he said Anthropic was good for doing. So a little bit of an et tu brute kind of situation. But that's how it's always been. OpenAI has always been fighting with Anthropic. So, this is not something that was totally unforeseen. Quote, in all our interactions, the DOW displayed deep respect for safety and desire to partner to achieve the best possible outcome. Quote, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Quote, Anthropic hates Western civilization, Elon Musk, obviously siding with the Trump administration. Quote, it will be an enormous pain in the ass to disentangle, and we are going to make sure they pay a price for forcing our hand like this. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Quote, we would like to try to help de-escalate things. That was OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, right as he kind of stabbed Anthropic in the back. Quote, Pentagon officials confirmed they're replacing Anthropic's Claude with xAI's Grok in classified military systems, not because Grok performs better, but because Elon Musk's company agreed to enable mass surveillance of U.S. citizens and fully autonomous weapons without ethical guardrails. That is true. That is true. I mean, Grok is basically going to be the system used in the future for weapons of small, medium, and massive destruction that are going to be fully autonomous without requiring any human interaction with it. So, yeah. And then keep in mind, none of this stuff stopped the train. You are going to, in the not too distant future, be mass surveilled by AI at a level never before seen. Remember how I made the video the other night? I was like, hey, look, they're trying to get to the point where they basically assess every single person who's receiving Social Security benefits. And they can't do it right now because their AI potential and capabilities aren't where they need to be. But in the future, they will be. Well, this is a main target of this. If they want to assess you, they got to have the calendar system as to when they're going to assess you. They have to have basically the actual autonomous system AI that's going to assess you, which is now Grok AI. And then from there, they have to have somebody actually review it, if they even want somebody to review it, before the benefits are removed. Now, traditionally, the benefits need some human to make some adjudication to remove them. But in these administrative type deals, which is what these benefits fall into, you don't need a traditional hearing at first to remove them. That's like with food stamps, Social Security benefits, etc. Some of these, you don't need a full hearing to do that. You just need an administrative review. Quote, the moves could benefit OpenAI's ChatGPT as well as Elon Musk's competing chatbot Grok, which the Pentagon also plans to give access to classified military networks. Quote, we also, and that was from the Associated Press article, quote, we also will build technical safeguards to ensure our models behave as they should, which the DOW also wants, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said. Another one, quote, Anthropic's woke CEO just got his ass handed to him by Trump and Hegseth, refused to drop the nanny rails so Pentagon could actually use AI to defend America, now banned from all federal use. Claude out, Grok in on classified systems. xAI steps up from an X post by a user, Honest Truthman. So just to be clear, this has now mega pushed Claude, the company that was basically kicked out of the US government, into the spotlight. And now let me put it to you this way. Now those who are in the middle or middle left, mostly Democrats, are like hyper pushing to use Claude and make it a popular thing now because it went against Trump's administration. So Claude was like the number one app for a short period there on the Apple App Store. And then because of that, their system just went down because it was like in that much demand. Okay, so what do you need to know about this? What's really the important part of all of this? Why do you have to keep this in mind? What do you have to worry about? All right. I've been saying this. People used to say I was a fearmonger and it was no way possible and they don't have enough people to do it. And how could you even say that? And blah, blah, blah. People used to throw that stuff at me all the time when I said the government would, with preference, like to go ahead and audit you, a Social Security recipient, every year. And a lot of you sit back and you go, well, I'm honest, I'm this, I'm that, I'm blah, 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 blah. And those individuals that live in the, I haven't done anything wrong, I'm not going to do anything wrong, I'm a cute little baby, those are unfortunately the mentally unprepared individuals that live in a fairy tale world where unicorns are pleasantly walking around on sunny beaches. The reality is that if you were forced to pay your entire life into a program that took, 15-ish% of whatever you earned from the year, and at the end of the day, then receive benefits, but in order to continue to receive them, you had to constantly be checked. It then comes into question, how much do you really want to always be audited by the federal government? So what's interesting about this is that the United States is now taking its final steps. And the only reason we even know about this is because Anthropic, somehow it ended up in the news. It forced the hand of the US government to respond. Otherwise, we would have never known. None of us would have ever known that the guardrails were on Anthropic's Claude system. Well, we wouldn't have known. The assumption is that there would be some protections protecting us, the US citizens, from our own government. I can officially say now that that is not really the truth. That is not really accurate. Going forward, they will have full access to the AI systems at whatever level they are, at whatever achievements they can do. So as a result of this, what's going to be happening here, just to be clear, is that the SSA will be able to, by and large, through all of their agencies. Because remember, the main thing of Trump with this whole, Doge thing, with all these other things, is to go ahead and create interagency communication systems. So the IRS, right, the US Treasury, right, the Social Security Administration, all these different agencies, all of their systems will be able to communicate with each other. So that's like one of the big step ones, using artificial intelligence. And once they're able to all communicate with each other, if you add to that artificial intelligence with hyper scanning abilities to go ahead and search people out, find people, etc., then you have the perfect system for finding fraud, waste, and abuse, because you're going to find it where a human would never be able to find it. And artificial intelligence would be able to find it in companies that are so large, so complicated, with so many sister companies and parent companies and this and that, that normally your CPAs lined up in a row wouldn't be able to figure it out. Well, now with artificial intelligence and these models, they can quickly scan anything and everything and figure out the problem if it exists. So what's happening? So in the future, just to be clear, you will be, with almost absolute certainty, likely scanned once a year when it comes to all the things you've done, all the things that are going on, all the medical appointments you've had, etc. So the culture of being somebody on Social Security benefits is going to change. Remember how I used to make the statement, hey, you're an advocate for your own disabled impairments? And then a lot of you were like, yeah, sure, whatever, don't care. And then I was like, hey, if you've been on benefits for 10, 15, 20 years and you're not really going in for medical all the time, A, you're going to create bad habits, and B, you're creating evidence that you're not that severe anymore, which means you're going to lose your benefits. And a lot of you are like, yeah, whatever, I've been having benefits for forever, nothing bad's going to happen to me. Well, every day, a couple of times a day, I get a call from somebody who's either being reviewed now or is about to be reviewed or is wondering when the review is going to happen because something happened, right? And so this just keeps happening over and over and over every single day, where I get the call and they say, hey, this happened. I think I'm going to be reviewed. I think I'm being followed. I think somebody interviewed somebody that I know, yada, yada, yada. Okay. What this news tells you is that for those of you that were mean to me and said, no, you're just fear mongering, blah, 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 blah. For those of you that were mean to me, there's a place out there where you can go F yourself, right? For those of you that were like, oh, nice fear mongering, blah, 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 blah. I told you this was going to happen. I told you how it was going to happen. I explained to you in a timeline format the things that they needed to achieve for it to happen. And now only because Anthropic put it out in the news do we know it has happened. And to some degree, it has already been going on. So I guess what you just have to kind of keep in mind here is that, aside from me being like a, bitter banana, the whole thing here is that you will almost with certainty over the next couple of years be reviewed every year, because they're not going to have to rely on some DDS rep just sitting there going through each file. Also, the fight over whether or not something is autonomous or requires human interaction, that battle is going on right now. If the government is willing to go ahead and have autonomous weaponry, you better believe they're going to be sure as fine, totally fine, with essentially having Social Security benefit review that has extremely limited human interaction, and then maybe evolve it with some changing of rules into no human interaction at all. And so the reason I share this with you is not to like scare you. It's just to be like, look, be prepared. If you got to clean something up in your life, clean something up in your life. If you have to go hire a company to go ahead and, delete stuff about you online, go hire a company to delete stuff about you online, And again, I'm not saying hide something that's illegal. I am saying there's a lot of stuff out there about anybody, everybody, whatever. Have them pull that shit back. You know what I mean? So the point is, and again, I'm not saying, hide illegal stuff. I'm just saying if there's something that you don't want the government to see and you have the capacity to go ahead and remove it, it may already be too late, but at the same time, get rid of it as it is, And so my point to you with all this is that we are seeing right now the two questions that needed to be answered as to whether or not you should be worried. Number one, are they doing mass surveillance using artificial intelligence? The correct answer is yes. Is it a violation of privacy rights? Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. But, that's a whole other lawsuit thing. Number two, is the government willing to make weaponry systems fully autonomous? Yes. Does that mean that the autonomous level of removing your benefits is on the checklist for potentials? Absolutely. You are not as scary or problematic when it comes to removing your benefits as fully automating something that shoots projectiles that could potentially harm a lot of people. Okay, so if you're sitting there like, no, the government would never do that to me. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. It absolutely would. It absolutely would. So, all right. With that said, I just wanted to give you a quick little video update. Attorney Walter Hnot. Please remember to like and subscribe. Head over to Google, throw disability resolution into the search bar, throw some stars up there. Also, I don't do Medicare stuff. So if you have Medicare questions, give basically Chapter a call right here at 339-226-6287. Again, 339-226-6287. I don't do that stuff, but if you have Medicare questions, give them a call. Other than that, I will basically catch you all a little bit later. Please remember, if you want a private session, mini contract is below. And we'll rock and roll from there. I will try to be live tonight, but again, I am super sick. So I'm just trying to do as much as I can to help out back office, front office, as much as I can. I will catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful night, and we will rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.